He retired after 35 years, bought his dream home, and wanted nothing more than peace. But when a ruthless HOA board turned his quiet neighborhood into a dictatorship, one man fought back with garden gnomes, secret recordings, and a plan no one saw coming. This isn't just a story about fines and bylaws. It's about courage, community, and taking a stand when no one else would. After 35 years of managing high-rise builds and union disputes, Samuel Greene thought he'd finally earned his peace. At 61, he retired with calloused hands, a worn back, and a dream. He paid cash for a cozy adobe home in Maple Crest, Arizona. No mortgage, no debts, just sunshine, lemon trees, and the occasional hummingbird. It was the kind of suburb where neighbors waved, dogs barked playfully, and kids biked around barefoot. Samuel believed he had found his forever home. For 6 months, it was paradise. Then came the letters. At first, they were confusing. A notice taped to his front door fined him $900 for parking his F-150 in his own driveway. Then $500 for unauthorized landscaping because of the rosemary he had planted decades ago in every home he'd lived in. When he tried to contest the charges, an HOA meeting was held. He showed up early, wearing a clean shirt and carrying a binder with the community bylaws. But this was no ordinary neighborhood meeting. The new president, Bradley Cormack, was a former D.C. lobbyist who oozed confidence and control. He introduced himself with a grin that never reached his eyes. Deanna Frost, a sharp-tongued real estate agent, controlled the conversation with veiled sarcasm and empty compliments. Leon Farrow, a retired banker, said almost nothing but spent the entire meeting scrolling through his iPad. Together, they steamrolled through the agenda. When Samuel stood to speak, his microphone was cut. When he protested, 2 men in tactical vests approached and told him to sit down. Security, they called themselves. But no one could tell where they came from. What started as petty fines soon grew into full-blown intimidation. The HOA began enforcing new regulations overnight, ones not outlined in any legally binding document. Anyone who questioned it received letters, photos taken from bushes, and sometimes unexpected knocks at the door from armed men claiming to be authorized enforcement officers. Samuel watched his elderly neighbor Gloria cry on her front porch after being followed by one of these men for days. Another family, the Nguyen's, started receiving daily fines until they switched their lawn care service conveniently owned by Leon's cousin. Something was wrong, very wrong. Samuel had spent his entire career reading blueprints, contracts, and fine print. He knew how to smell corruption, and this reeked. He reached out to Darrell Vance, an old friend and former co-worker who had transitioned into private investigation. Darrell drove down from Tucson in a beat-up Chevy with more surveillance gear than luggage. Together, they mapped out a network of shell corporations all tied back to the HOA board: Cormack Landscaping, Safe Block Security, Prestige Home Services. Each company was recently incorporated, each awarded contracts by the board without bidding. Funds moved in circles, masked by layered ownership. The HOA had become a front, an extortion racket in cul-de-sac form. Samuel felt anger boiling beneath his calm exterior, but he knew that confronting them head-on would only backfire. So he did what he always did. When the system failed, he built something better. Inside his garage, Samuel created a command center. He installed surveillance cameras in garden gnomes, hidden microphones in porch lights, and a backup data server in an old ice chest. He held late-night meetings in hushed tones, gathering allies from the neighborhood: Gloria, the Nguyen's, a local teacher named Marcy. They shared notes, stories, and evidence. And then, one night, Samuel captured the smoking gun. Deanna Frost, unaware she was being recorded by a tiny mic in a flower pot, leaned in during a private conversation with Leon and said it will make Greene vanish if we have to. It wasn't just harassment anymore. It was a threat. 3 nights later, It escalated. At 11:26 p.m., Samuel heard a pounding on the door. 3 men in tactical gear stood outside, flashing badges that looked suspiciously like something printed at an office supply store. One of them announced, "You're being removed under HOA order. This property is now in violation." Samuel didn't flinch. He invited them inside. He offered coffee. And while they stood in his kitchen making veiled threats, his security system streamed everything live to the Arizona Attorney General's office. Within minutes, state agents were on site. The fake officers were arrested, their weapons confiscated, and their van impounded. That was just the beginning. The arrests cracked open a deeper investigation. Over the next 48 hours, real law enforcement raided the homes of every board member. Devices were seized, bank accounts frozen. A forensic audit uncovered fraud, racketeering, impersonation, conspiracy, and a statewide pattern of abuse across 4 Arizona neighborhoods. The headlines were explosive. HOA crime ring busted in suburban Arizona. Local retiree helps take down fraud empire. Samuel became a reluctant local hero. Reporters camped outside. People baked him pies. Someone even sent him a custom lawn sign that read, "This property defeated the HOA." But Samuel didn't care about attention. He cared about truth, about community, about peace. And that's what followed. Gloria began sleeping through the night again. The Nguyen's put up holiday lights for the first time in years. The neighborhood hosted a potluck, the first since the HOA crackdown, and Samuel showed up with cornbread and a grin. A new board was elected transparent, inclusive, and community-led. The bylaws were revised, this time with everyone's vote. The old board Cormac was sentenced to 27 years. Deanna, 15. Leon took a plea deal and served time in federal prison. Samuel, he never moved. He still waters his rosemary every morning, still parks his truck in the driveway, still drinks black coffee on the porch at dawn. But now, he does so knowing that his quiet life wasn't just protected, it was earned.